2021 started off with WWE still in the midst of the pandemic era, trapped in the Thunderdome like they were Jim Carrey in The Truman Show, except for the fact that The Truman Show was actually entertaining. Fortunately, by the time the year was over, things were a little more normal again. Well, as normal as WWE has ever looked, anyway. Regardless of what was going on outside of the wrestling bubble, the company was still able to put on some great matches, both in front of real fans and horrifying computer screens. I'm Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic Wrestling, and these are the 10 best WWE matches of 2021. Join us! Number 10, Bobby Lashley versus Drew McIntyre versus Braun Strowman at WrestleMania Backlash. Hopefully there are no vegetarians watching this video because we are kicking off with some meat. After a somewhat surprising retention of the WWE Championship over Drew McIntyre at WrestleMania 37, Bobby Lashley found himself once again up against the Scotsman, with a new challenger entering the fray. Braun Strowman, who had beaten Shane McMahon at Mania, was inserted into the mix, laying the foundations for a seriously bulky match. The three behemoths just battered each other over the course of this relatively short affair at WrestleMania Backlash, going non-stop with their displays of power and ruthless force. This chaotic brawl spilled out all over the arena, including up to the LED board at the top of the ramp, which McIntyre sent Lashley through in a great spot. The Almighty eventually retained, albeit at the cost of some of his brain cells, bringing this whirlwind of muscle and carnage to an end. Bobby and Drew would continue to feud over the belts, but what happened to Braun? Oh, that's right, he didn't appear on TV again and ended up getting released a few months later. At least he's back now, eh? Number 9, Drew McIntyre versus Sheamus at Fastlane. Sorry, veggies, you can't come back in yet because we've got a bit more beef to talk about. After years of being stuck in some pretty stupid storylines and feeling sometimes like just another body on the roster, 2021 finally saw Sheamus fulfill his potential as a hard-hitting, no-nonsense bruiser, a transformation that was kick-started by his rivalry with Drew McIntyre. The two IRL best buds butted heads over Drew's WWE title, with Sheamus turning heel in hopes of getting the belt. Unfortunately, McIntyre lost the gold before they could have their title match, but that didn't stop them from throwing down anyway. At Fastlane 2021, Drew and Sheamus went head-to-head in a no-holds-barred match, with months of frustration fueling the action. No stone was left unturned, no inch of space was left unexplored, and nothing not nailed down was left unused as a weapon, as this pair of burly Europeans knocked 7 shades of you-know-what out of one another. McIntyre may have won the match to build to his Mania encounter with Lashley, but this was still a huge achievement for his opponent. Nice one, fella. Number 8, the SmackDown Elimination Chamber at Elimination Chamber. SmackDown's Elimination Chamber match at the pay-per-view of the same name was for a shot at Roman Reigns' Universal Championship at some point. It was a little vague with the time frame. There was plenty of talent in the pods as King Corbin, Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, Jey Uso, Cesaro, and Daniel Bryan all vied for a chance to dethrone the Tribal Chief. And hey, when a match starts with Bryan and Cesaro and there's still more people to come, you know you're in for a treat. Though Raw's match on this night was a lot of fun, the blue version of the chamber just pips it in terms of action. There was plenty of storyline substance as well, as Jey, who was in the bloodline at this point, entered last looking to protect his cousin's interest. Whilst the Uso brother made the final 2, it was Bryan who won the day, going the distance to punch his ticket to a future title shot. How far into the future, you ask? Well, about 30 seconds. Reigns said the match would be happening right now and immediately beat Bryan to retain. Number 7, Roman Reigns versus Cesaro at WrestleMania Backlash. It's hard to believe, but in all the years that Cesaro was in WWE, he had just one singles match for a world championship. And it happened the year before he left. The Swiss Superman not only got a chance at Roman Reigns and the Universal title, but he got it in the main event of WrestleMania Backlash, which had the word WrestleMania in it, so it would appear in more internet searches. Clever. It doesn't take a wrestling genius like me to know that with these two highly talented grapplers in the ring, a great match was more likely than not. Neither man disappointed as the 28 minutes they were given flew by in a flurry of technical moves, power spots, and Roman yelling in Cesaro's face, which was the style at the time. Though he was unable to win the big one, the King of Swing showed that he was more than capable of holding his own in a big match, something that die-hard fans had known for years. Sadly, this did little to enhance his status in the company, as on the next show, he lost in the second match. Better luck at AEW, pal. Number 6, the men's Money in the Bank ladder match at Money in the Bank. Mania 37 might have been the first WWE show with fans since the start of the pandemic, but Money in the Bank was the first pay-per-view to have a full crowd in over a year. So, how was it? Well, it was fine. Luckily, there were a few great matches on the night, especially this one, in which 8 men battled it out in hopes of becoming Mr. Money in the Bank. Ricochet, Kevin Owens, Seth Rollins, John Morrison, these guys were made to be in a big ladder match, and they and everybody else involved did not let fans down. Maybe it was because the previous year's match had been that weird one that took place in Titan Towers, but this Money in the Bank match felt like one of the freshest in years. Owens and Matt Riddle ran wild, Shinsuke Nakamura got to impress, Ricochet did what he does best and defied gravity. Not even a run-in by Jinder Mahal to attack Drew McIntyre could dampen spirits. To top it all off, the winner of the match was Big E, someone who had been long overdue a World Championship push. Truly a feel-good ending to a very entertaining bout. Number 5, Cesaro vs Seth Rollins at WrestleMania 37 Night 1. In the lead up to WrestleMania 37, Seth Rollins became everybody on the internet and started pointing out how Cesaro had failed to live up to his potential in WWE. Drawing on the Swiss star's genuine lack of a sustained push over his career, the Monday Night Messiah railed on poor Cesaro until the strongman finally snapped, setting up this match for the first night of the Showcase of the Immortals. If you had told an indie wrestling fan in 2010 that they would be getting Castagnoli versus Black at WrestleMania, they would have wet themselves. It might have come about 11 years behind schedule, but the match still wowed, as the chemistry between these two men was undeniable. Cesaro seriously impressed here, showing everyone exactly why he deserved more prominence in the company. I mean, he even pulled off a bloody UFO, aka a no-handed airplane spin. How is that even possible? After years of being ignored, the cult hero finally got a big win on a big stage when he pinned a very dizzy Rollins to a huge ovation. Hey, hopefully Cesaro enjoyed his time in the spotlight. Unfortunately, it didn't last long. Number 4, Roman Reigns vs Daniel Bryan on SmackDown. 2021 was the year that Daniel Bryan left WWE to go to AEW, so you would have thought they'd have put his final match on a big platform. Nope, it happened on a random episode of SmackDown, go figure. After many failed attempts to take the Universal title off Roman Reigns, the American Dragon agreed to one final title match with some big stakes. If he won, the championship was his, but if he lost, he would be banished from SmackDown. With all this going on, plus the long history between the two competitors, this was a must-see bout, and the action it produced was worthy of such a moniker. In one of the best SmackDown finales of all time, Bryan came within inches of besting Reigns many times before finally succumbing to the guillotine choke. A brilliantly worked match with plenty of drama throughout and a history-making finish, Reigns vs Bryan was everything it needed to be and more, and easily the best match of the year to take place in front of 0 fans. Number 3, Edge vs Seth Rollins at Crown Jewel. In order to win his second Royal Rumble match, Edge eliminated Seth Rollins in what he thought was the final spot of the night. In reality, there was a whole thing with Randy Orton, but that's for another time. It makes sense then that these two would come back together later in the year, having a trilogy of matches that began at SummerSlam and culminated in grand fashion at Crown Jewel inside Hell in a Cell. Sorry, couldn't help myself. Despite taking place at Crown Jewel, a show not known for great matches, Rollins vs Edge was absolutely electric. For the first time in a long time, the stipulation felt genuinely earned, like it was a last resort for two men who genuinely couldn't stand each other, and they used the demonic cube to its full potential. From chairs and tables to ladders and steps to a damn steel chain, the ring looked like a bomb site with various bits of shrapnel strewn all over as these gladiators gave everything they had to get the win. The Rated R superstar got the job done after using Seth's own stomp against him to round out one of the best cell matches in recent memory. Number 2, Sasha Banks vs Bianca Belair at WrestleMania 37 Night 1. For the first time in WrestleMania history, two African-American performers squared off in the main event as Sasha Banks defended her SmackDown Women's Championship against Bianca Belair. Bianca had put on a star-making performance in the Royal Rumble, winning from the number 3 spot, but her build to the match with Banks had been lackluster to say the least. It featured a lot of Reggie for some reason. Don't know who thought that was a good idea. Thankfully, us wrestling fans have short memories, so when they saw both ladies getting emotional at the start of this massive match, all was forgiven. And that is when things got good. Banks and Belair both rose to the occasion, but especially the challenger, who showed everyone why she deserved to be the new face of women's wrestling in WWE. From carrying Sasha up the steps in a press slam position to slicing the boss's stomach open with a vicious hair whip, Bianca looked every bit the main eventer here, and her opponent did a brilliant job in making her look great whilst also keeping the match interesting. The EST won the battle and the championship in one of the best WrestleMania women's matches we've ever seen. Number 1, Roman Reigns versus Daniel Bryan versus Edge at WrestleMania 37 Night 2. Banks versus Belair may well have been the best match of the entire year had this masterpiece not come along just one night later. Just when it looked like Roman Reigns was going to face Royal Rumble winner Edge at Mania 37, Daniel Bryan stuck his hairy little head round the door and reminded everybody how good he was. The match was made a triple threat, with Reigns as the heel, Bryan as the babyface, and Edge somewhere in the middle. This dynamic created a lot of intrigue heading into WrestleMania, and mercifully, fans were rewarded for their investment. Rather than being one of those dull three-ways WWE is sometimes guilty of, this was all action, all drama, all of the time. It was realistic that any of the men involved could have won, which kept things super interesting, especially as they all came close on numerous occasions. What this fight will be remembered for is the amazing image of Roman stacking both of his opponents to pin them at the same time, asserting his dominance after a truly spectacular display from all involved. Little did we know that this was only the beginning.